Good afternoon, spiritual warriors on the path. This is the Medicine Lady, and I am making a full-blown video about Mercury in retrograde in the sign of Aries. I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of really volatile energy out there, both in terms of emotions as well as just incidents that can occur. So I think it's really important that people kind of tune into their energetic ability to create the reality that they want to. Because if you don't take control with your intentions and your prayers and create the reality around you that you want, what's going to happen is that Mercury in retrograde is going to do its thing. And you really want to be an empowering aspect of your reality and not a victim to this Mercury in retrograde. So first of all, this video is not going to be too heavy on the astrology. It's more intuitive guidance, but I am going to share just the basics so that everybody understands, what we're dealing with. And then I'll provide a little bit less of the astrology and more of just the intuitive guidance. So first of all, for anyone who doesn't understand, the planet Mercury is a planet that governs communication, movement, travel, the mind, the brain, how we think, how we process. And 3 times a year, Mercury slows down, then stations, and then basically in relation to the Earth, it goes backwards. Some of us, like me, were born when Mercury is in retrograde. So for me right now, even though the rest of the world is in chaos, I actually am basically experiencing my normal. This is like my norm because Mercury is in retrograde for me all the time. So now the rest of the world is on my vibration. So when Mercury's in retrograde, life is a lot more right brain, right? So it's a lot less rational and linear. So that's how I operate all the time anyway. So, tuning into more of my kind of psychic abilities and all of those kinds of things is very normal for me because I live in that state all the time. So many of you probably also have Mercury in retrograde in your natal chart. So you can look that up. You can go to astro.com. I'm offering mini readings specifically focused on Mercury in retrograde right now. So I'm doing 30-minute readings for $30 or 60 minutes for $55. So that's something you can do to get more clarity about how it's affecting you specifically. So for example, right now, because Mercury is in the sign of Aries, wherever you have the sign of Aries in your chart, whether you have planets in Aries or whichever house is governed by Aries, that aspect of your life is going to be particularly affected by this Mercury in retrograde. Okay? So we've got Mercury, the planet Mercury, which 3 times a year stations and goes in the opposite direction relative to the Earth. And then we've got the sign that Mercury is in right now, which is very relevant, which is why I say this is not a normal retrograde. Because already when Mercury goes retrograde, there's a lot of misunderstandings, miscommunications, a lot of accidents, people get into arguments, these types of things. But because Mercury is in the sign of Aries, those situations are going to be like really, really heightened. They're going to be multiplied in terms of the intensity and kind of like the aggression energy that's out there, which is why it's really important that you seek stillness within and you use the power of your energy field and your intentions and your thoughts to harmonize everything around you. Because like I said, you don't want to be a victim to this energy. You don't want to end up in the middle of an explosive situation. You want to use your intentions and your energy to create and to build with this Mercury, not to have destruction. Because there's a lot of energy that's very explosive. There's a lot of triggers out there right now. So let's talk about Aries. So Aries is ruled by the planet Mars. And given that we're coming out of the patriarchy, and Mars is sort of like the prototypical masculine energy, one of the prototypical masculine energies, and it's in the sign of Capricorn, which for me is the other very masculine energy. What we have going on is that Mercury is in the sign of the masculine. And because we're coming out of the patriarchy, there's a lot of that kind of old, unbalanced masculine energy that's out there, that's still seeking balance. It's still seeking, to come back into alignment with the divine feminine so that they can be in alignment with each other. And they are, and they have come so much closer than they have been in thousands of years. But a lot of the energy that's out there is still going to be that unbalanced kind of rogue masculine energy that has, created obviously a lot of the violence and the upheaval of the last few thousand years. And we're moving out of that, into the age of Aquarius. So there's that aspect of Mercury being in retrograde in the sign of Aries, ruled by the planet Mars, which, in traditional astrology, people would call it the war god, the god of war, right? And again, that was the old paradigm of Mars being, a very unbalanced war god, right? When really we want Mars to be like the spiritual warrior, the warrior that has mastered his or her impulses. So we're moving into that, but again, we have to really bring a lot of intention for Mars to be experienced that way, and in this case, Aries, Mercury in the sign of Aries. All right, so then the other thing we have going on right now is that we have Venus in Aries. So, Venus is the sign of the goddess. Venus would be Isis if we go to Egypt. Venus would be Oshun if we go to West Africa. And, there's a lot of different archetypes all over the world. Kali Ma from the Hindu tradition. So Venus right now is in the sign of Aries, and I have Venus in Aries natally. And it gives, a lot of intense, sexual, masculine type energy as it relates to the divine feminine, right? So right now, a lot of women around the world, as well as men connecting to their feminine aspect, are really reclaiming that power, right? They're reclaiming the power of the divine feminine, the power of Kali Ma, the female warrior. And so, just like in any time when there's a period of transition or rebalancing, there can be a time of unbalance where the divine feminine is seeking its balance, it's seeking its authentic expression, and as it finds that authentic expression, there can be a time of great imbalance. And so I see a lot of what's going on right now being that time of rebalancing, where there's a lot of that intense, masculine, impulsive energy out there that we want to bring into alignment. So we want to bring Venus and Mars, into divine harmony. So that's part of our, our meditation and our reflection and our intention during this Mercury and retrograde in the sign of Aries, is that we want to tap into the really balanced, productive, constructive aspects of Aries, right? Because Aries, although it is the war god, it's also, really that universal energy of moving forward, of moving ahead. It's the entrepreneur, the leader, the warrior. So we can create, a lot of beautiful things with that Aries energy. It's the creative energy, the creative impulse that exists in the world. It's like that raw masculine energy. So a lot can be created. But again, we have to make sure that whatever we're creating, we're not creating from a place of impulsiveness or from a place of ego, because the unbalanced Aries Mars energy is very like me, right? It's all about me, and it's not seeking that balanced, responsible interdependence that Venus is often seeking, right? So we've got to bring that me energy into a place of balance. And that's part of what our challenge is during this retrograde period, is that we have, we have, in my view, we have like two pathways. We have the pathway of kind of the untamed, impulsiveness, which, to be perfectly honest, that impulsiveness can create a lot of destruction, right? Because it can end up creating explosive types of environments and situations. And then we have the ability and the pathway of really harnessing that Aries Mars energy into creating something sustainable and constructive, right? And so how you choose to take and use this energy is entirely up to you. But I would say the path that you take, know that will have very drastically different results. So that's kind of the big picture of where we are right now with Mercury in retrograde in the sign of Aries. Always when Mercury is in retrograde, and I expect this to be, exponentially seen during this retrograde, there's a lot of car accidents. So it's really important when Mercury's in retrograde, even more so than at other times of the year, that you really reclaim your role as the architect of your reality. So that when, like, for example, especially when you step outside of your own house and you step into the outer world, that your energy field and your intentions and your energy, they precede you with their power in the sense of the type of situations that you're stepping into, right? So just like we know, as above, so below, we know that, whatever is outside of us in our energy field is what we're pulling into us. So based on the law of attraction, if we're meditating, if we're doing deep breathing, if we're pausing to reflect before we react, and we are creating a very grounded, calm energy field, and we're, creating affirmations as we get in the car that, I am in harmony with the world around me. The entire universe is, in harmony and peace however you want to say it, but create the intention with your energy field, with your thoughts, that you're going to move through the world from a place of balance. And that as you move through the world, you're going to create harmony and peace. Because anytime Mercury is moving in opposition in relation to the Earth, there is a chaos energy that gets created, right? So you do not want to get stuck in this chaos energy, right? Where things kind of have a tendency to kind of go like this. So instead of them kind of going like this and coming together, there's like that type of energy, right? So you want to not necessarily override that energy, but you really want to work with it, right? You want to harmonize with it. You want it to work to your advantage and the advantage of the people around you, right? So like when I'm on the road in particular and I'm driving in, South Florida traffic, I do a lot of deep breathing. I imagine how much I am in harmony and peace with everyone in my environment. And, knock on wood, it works really well, right? Because I'm really being intentional with how I'm using my energy field. As well as when events or situations or incidents pop up in traffic, how you respond to them also creates a certain energy. So, on the real, I think it's really important as an astrologist to give people a heads up about the fact that, it's really important to look out for your safety when Mercury's in retrograde, especially when it's in the sign of Aries, So you can also say a prayer. I pray a lot to Archangel Michael. I know a lot of people who work with angels and spiritual energies talk to Archangel Michael. And, it can be as simple as this. Archangel Michael, I call on you to protect me and my physical body, my car, my loved ones today as we're out in the world, So again, there's no prescribed thing that you have to say or do. It's really just you tapping into your spiritual power and the energetic power that you carry throughout the world by setting your intentions, and saying those prayers as you're moving through the world during this retrograde period. So here's an example of an affirmation that I wrote earlier. I move through this retrograde with authentic poise, pausing to reflect and breathe before I react, so I may respond with power and intention, channeling my will and energy into creative initiatives that create more balance in this world. So again, I want my energy to go into creation, sustained creation, right? As opposed to the opposite path that we talked about. All right, so the other thing I want to talk about is medical astrology, because it's really important that we focus on a couple things right now. One is the throat. Obviously, Mercury is a lot about speaking your truth. So we do want to speak our truth during this time, and we also want to make sure that we're speaking our truth with what intention? You know what I mean? Just to be a rebel, just to get a reaction out of somebody, just to get attention? Or are we speaking our truth because we really want to create more balance, or, more productivity or more harmony in our relationships? So again, it's good to take that time when Mercury is in retrograde to really pause. Like if you're feeling the impulse to have a conversation, this is that time to wait. This is that time where instead of rushing through that traffic light, put on the brakes. This is that time where that inhale, when you take that inhale and then you hold it for a few seconds, let's do it right now. And then you get to pause and you get to reflect and you get to wait. So that in the waiting, you're actually choosing your response as opposed to kind of being a victim to that energy, that sort of impulsive energy. Because that's what Mars is. It's kind of, Aries is wants to go, go, go. It has a very impulsive kind of reactionary, rash energy to it. And so you want to take that energy and harness it in the way that is going to be the most beneficial for you in your life and your loved ones, right? So what else? Let's see. I teach a number of classes and programs helping people learn how to work with their energy fields and tapping into your spiritual power. You can find those on my website, which is themedicinelady.com. Before I end today, I am going to draw a couple of cards from my favorite medicine card book. It's called the Keepers of Light Oracle Cards. And I am going to draw a card for us that is specifically about this Mercury in retrograde. Back to medical astrology really quickly. Mercury and Uranus rule the nervous system. So with this Mercury being in retrograde, we want to, of course, think about how to bring balance to our nervous system, right? Because our mind, Mercury being the mind as well, is already going to be operating in a different way than it does, right? So we want to bring that harmonization of the mind and the energy system, the whole nervous system aspect of our energy field, right? It's very fast moving, electronic, very electrifying. So again, just even taking 2 minutes when you wake up to do 2 minutes of deep breathing, that kind of thing is going to go a long way in bringing that balance and peace and harmonization to your life during this retrograde period. Because Mercury is in the sign of Aries, we also want to think about the head. The head is, and particularly the eyes too, can be very affected with Mercury in Aries because of the fact that Mars in Aries rules the head. So you want to put kind of a special protection around anything that has to do with your head during this period, right? And that could be fevers, that could be, anything that happens in the head, you want to almost put a special prayer. You want to put a special prayer protection on that, okay? Whether it's your children, your loved ones, an older parent, really tap into your spiritual, energetic ability to bring balance to a situation, especially proactively. When someone has a raging high fever, it can be more challenging to learn how to use energy work to bring balance to an acute situation. But if, as you walk through Mercury in retrograde, you're really asking, the forces around you to help bring balance to each and every person and place and object in your environment, you have a lot more power in that situation when you're working proactively, okay? The last thing that I want to talk about is that we still have Chiron or Chiron in Pisces. It will be moving out of the sign of Pisces into the sign of Aries, which is a whole other story. But Chiron in Pisces really has to do with healing our wound with spirit. So this is a really important time to bring some awareness to our relationship or our wound with spirit. And most of us, as spiritual beings who've incarnated into the physical world, we do have a wound with spirit because we're coming through, healing from the patriarchy, where there was a great sense of abandonment from spirit because of all the violence and trauma that occurred. There's a large sort of collective wound that many of us carry of if spirit, if God, if the great source, the great mystery is true, then how could these terrible things happen, right? And so this is a great time to really strengthen and cultivate your relationship with spirit, calling on your guides, calling on your ancestors, calling on your archangels, and just choosing to trust. So when you take those 2 minutes in the morning and midday and the evening to breathe, breathing in the trust, breathing in the support of the universe, knowing that you are supported spiritually, that you're not alone. And all of those things are going to go a great way to helping to bring that balance and that grounded kind of calm energy to your energy field, which is going to project out into your entire reality. So that's Chiron in Pisces. You can look up Chiron anywhere on the web. Just put in Chiron astrology, and you will learn about this really powerful astrological object in the sky. All right, so before I pick our card, I'm going to end by just talking about a couple of things that you can practice during this retrograde period. There are things that are really good to practice anyway, but especially right now. And then I'm going to end this video hopefully within 20 minutes. That's my goal. All right, so the things that here's your homework, if you want to call it. The things that I would like to suggest that we practice together. 1 is obviously deep breathing. 2 is mindfulness moments, whether it's, walking to the post office or the P.O. box, why can't I think of the word? Our mailbox, and taking that time to just be mindful for 2 minutes. Learning to hold space for yourself. So holding space for yourself, almost imagine that you have a circle of angels or grandparents around you that are just there knowing that you're going to be fine, right? Holding space for yourself, holding space for someone else. So when we're going through a difficult time, we can really call on the heart chakra. We can call on the heart center because it's the place that holds the center of compassion, right? We have compassion. And when we extend compassion to ourselves and to others, it's a very empowering energy, right? Compassion is saying, I know that you don't need me because you got this. I have so much faith and trust in your process that I'm just here holding space for you. It's a really powerful thing to do for somebody. And so you can do it for other people when they're going through a hard time and having their temper tantrums and, acting very irrational and impulsive and explosive. Think about it. Do you want to mirror their energy, or do you want to, hold space and have that grounding energy that allows them to calm down, that allows the situation to calm down, right? So there's a lot of power in this whole concept of holding space. All right. The last thing is yoga. Practicing a little bit of yoga, and as you're practicing the yoga, as you inhale, pausing before you exhale. Pausing before you inhale, pausing before you exhale. So whether you're doing it with yoga, meditation, mindfulness, or whether you're literally just walking through your day remembering to inhale and pause and exhale and pause. That right there is life-changing. And just in general, taking kind of the motto during this time of pausing before you react, so that you're not reacting, you're responding intentionally. And that is going to go it's going to have a huge impact on whether you become a creator or a destroyer during this time. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pick a card for us. So bear with me 1 minute. I'm going to just close my eyes and meditate really quickly on the intention for this. All right, so this is the card that I got for us. It says, El Mariah, Awakening Presence, the universe is with you. Wear a cloak of protection and love. So I think that's really beautiful during this retrograde time to not only call in the energy of protection, but to call in the energy of unconditional love, right? Because we know that the mother, the divine mother and the divine father, I'll read to you from the book. We know the divine mother and the divine father are very protective. So if you look at Kali Ma, for example, she's one of our universal ancient archetypes of the divine feminine, right? And she's a very balanced, beautiful combination of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, because ultimately that's how it is, right? We're not one or the other. It doesn't have to do with like your body type, right? We all have both. And so Kali Ma shows us, like in real life, how those two energies come together in a really powerful way, right? So the divine masculine and the divine feminine have a lot of interest and reason to protect us, so we are protected. And the more we call in that protection, the more we acknowledge that protection, and the unconditional love of the divine mother and the divine father, the more we are protected, right? I think you guys know how that works. All right, so I'm going to read this to you, and then we'll go ahead and close. And I'm going to say a prayer of protection for everyone before I close. El Mariah is a spiritual name that was given to protect the identity of Ranbir Singh, a spiritually aware man born into a powerful family that ruled Kashmir, a region in the Indian subcontinent, in the 19th century. It is said that he interceded both spiritually and physically to stop the British invasion of the region in 1845. This wise soul is now able to help us remove any energy from our life that is not serving our connection to God. He is a wonderful guide to call on if we are unsure if something is real or not. He helps awaken our I am presence, which is our truest connection to our soul and to the universe itself. Spiritual protection is important at this time. Ensure that you are cleansing your energy before putting on protection. El Mariah is here with a legion of angels to help you understand where you are at now. Fire up your divine connection and detach from dramas, people, places, and emotions that no longer serve you. Remember that within you there is a mighty soul light. Allow that light to shine through your entire being. Then call on El Mariah and his angels to surround you in a light that will keep you safe on all levels. Also know that facing fears and seeing the truth will strengthen your connection to the universal life force. Beautiful. All right, so before I say our closing prayer of protection for everyone, I wanted to give a shout out to the Banyan House. You can see on my t-shirt here that it says, I wear oils on my skin, honey on my lips, crystals in my bra. So I thought it was like the most adorable shirt, and I have to say that like the material for this t-shirt is so comfortable. It's like my new favorite shirt. I'm totally in love with it. So shout out to the Banyan House. The Banyan House is like a spiritual wellness center up in Dania Beach, South Florida. If you live in South Florida, or if you come here to visit, it's an amazing place. They have lots and lots and lots of wellness services, massage, Reiki, you name it. So you can go to their website, just put in the Banyan House, Dania Beach, and it will come up. They sponsor a monthly metaphysical day. They call it the Psychic Fair, where all types of really high level, authentic readers and intuitives come to give readings to people. Very affordable, and it's a great way to meet different readers that can offer different types of spiritual guidance for what you're going through. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and say a prayer now. If you're watching this video, please feel free to join me with your hands in prayer position. Either way, I offer this prayer to you from my heart, and I hope that it serves you. Holy Mother, Holy Father, Holy Spirit, we call on the Divine Mother and the Divine Father to help us walk in balance during this Mercury in retrograde.